Are we streaming?
We are.
Great. It is 5 o'clock. It is November the 2nd, and I will call to order this meeting of the Community and Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee by acknowledging that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, including the traditional lands of the Anishinaabek, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwe peoples, and on lands connected with the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the earth and vital contributors to our society. And we will look for an adoption of the agenda. And I believe it is moved by Councillor Comey and seconded by Mayor Saunderson that the content of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee for November 2nd be adopted as presented. Are there any comments or questions regarding that? Then I will call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. We move on to business arising from the previous meeting. Is there any business arising from the previous meeting? Seeing none, we will ask for declarations of pecuniary interest. And if you have any, please declare them now, or if we come on to a piece of the agenda that will require you to recuse yourself, please do so at that time. Staff reports. And we move on to item 5.1, and I believe Councillor Berman has something he'd like to say at this point. Councillor Berman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move that we refer this to Wednesday's SIC meeting.
Do you have a seconder?
I don't, but I do now.
You do? Excellent.
Do
Okay.
to give a rationale, or do I not? We just vote, or?
Just 1 second while I ask the clerk whether that is possible for us to move this staff report to the SIC meeting coming up on Wednesday. The agenda for it's already set. Can we put an addendum on it?
Yes, through the chair to the committee, we can do issue an addendum if the committee decides tonight that they prefer to have that item added to the SIC. We will look at the agenda to make sure that we have enough space on that meeting, because we don't want to overload them either, but at this point I don't see it being a problem.
Any comments or questions regarding this referral committee? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Super, carries unanimously. Item 5.2, which is a staff report, PRC 2020-08, Municipal Alcohol Policy Update. I believe that it is Director Dean Culver who will be speaking to this. Is that the case, Director Culver?
Yes, it is, Madam Chair.
Here we go.
I will speak to this one for sure.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that I seem to be in the semi-dark. I don't know if my lighting's changed, but anyway. So the municipal alcohol policy is a longstanding policy in town, reflective of the AGCO's requirements for operating a liquor license under a special occasion permit. We have been in the past commended by the AGCO for having a stringent municipal alcohol policy for third-party events, and because we often exceed the requirements of the SOP in order to protect municipal liability and provide for public safety. I'm actually going to ask if Karen Cubitt is available. I think she's in the waiting room, hopefully, and she can jump in and talk a little bit about the changes that were updated in this version of the report based on consultation with the AGCO and the health unit. Oh, it looks like Karen is having connectivity issues. Okay, so we'll hang on 1 second while I pull up the report, and I will do my best as the not author of the report to walk through some of the changes that I can recall from my conversation with Karen. Let's see here. So in the report, it talks about a clear definition of youth events, designation of municipal property for AGCO licenses, Yeah, there were this, so some of the bigger changes, one of the changes, so the AGCO actually allows for tailgating, which is something, for example, that the town is not, or staff are not recommending that the town permit. One of the things that we've attempted to do over time is maintain proper designation of management areas for liquor licensing on town property. So tailgating doesn't really work for that. And so that was one of the reasons why it was opted to not include it in the municipal alcohol policy. Sorry. We had another update or another highlight to point out is the Liquor License Act no longer requires a permit holder to provide food as a part of the service of alcohol. The town, again, just as an abundance of caution and diligence, will be asking permit holders to provide food as a part of the operation of a liquor license on town property. Staff believe that under the original provision, it allows for the better absorption of alcohol, so we're going to maintain that within our policy. There is a segment in here under the mixing of alcohol and cannabis, and I know from conversations with Karen that this has to do with a health unit recommendation to basically discourage the consumption, the mixed consumption of alcohol and cannabis. Liquor License Act, or the liquor license controls, provide for some management of the consumption of alcohol through programs like Smart Serve. However, cannabis can be a bit of a sleeping demon if somebody is engaged in eating edibles and there's no way of knowing that until risk has been enhanced. So that's why there is a segment in there requiring that the permit holder do everything in their power to try and encourage people not to mix cannabis and alcohol, as difficult a challenge as that might be. Yeah, at this point, I think I could probably take some questions, and then I'll try and grab Karen on text, and she can help me out with any questions or answers that might be needed.
First, we'll turn to any members of the public who have questions regarding the staff report. I think that's our procedure, is it not, Clerk Almus?
That is correct, and it doesn't appear that we have any attendees wishing to speak to this matter.
Wonderful. Then we'll turn to our committee members and ask if there are any questions for Executive Director Culver on this staff report. Then we will move on to calling the question, and apparently it is moved by Councillor Manigan and seconded by Councillor Berman that staff report PRC 2020-08 municipal alcohol policy be received, and that council approve the draft updated municipal alcohol policy to proceed to public consultation. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5.3, the facility allocation policy. And I believe this is, we're turning back again to Executive Director Culver for some words on this report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is not a long-standing policy. This is actually a new policy being proposed. We have had an operating procedure that staff have used to allocate ice over the last, I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago that it was established. But the idea of putting in front of council and receiving council's endorsement, although staff will still administer the policy, is this basically to offer another layer of transparency of how these decisions are made and how ICE and other facilities are allocated. Within the policy, you'll note that there are certain emphasis on things like youth sport and other things that help us to sort of filter and vet requests for facility use. The overall objective essentially is fairness and trying to make sure that the town's mandate is adhered to when it comes to public activity and recreation. So I'm not sure that there's anything else I can offer, but I'm happy to answer any questions around the policy.
Clerk Almus, is there anyone from the public who wishes to ask a question regarding the staff report?
Again, if anybody attending this meeting would like to speak, please press the raise your hand feature or *9 if you're on the telephone. And there does not appear to be anybody wishing to speak to this matter.
Thank you. So I turn it to the committee. Any questions or comments from the committee regarding the staff report? Councillor Berman.
Just one comment, Madam Chair, through you to Dean, was I was really impressed with the part that named the affiliated organizations and the ICE Summit, and that it was so well received and that no changes were necessary, because I've never been a hockey parent, but I hear the horror stories about it. The fact that all the groups got along and, saying kumbaya, so to speak, was really impressive. That was all.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that I wouldn't necessarily call it a kumbaya moment, but what I would say is that there was a lot of constructive insight amongst all parties about how difficult it is to manage the ice facilities we have. We're over 100% capacity on both ice surfaces. We were prior to pandemic, and we're kind of back there again under new restrictions. So I think there was a bit of an understanding established by all members of the summit that this is something that is good to be understood, because as we grow, as women's hockey grows, for example, those ice allocations have to be found somewhere, and so there has to be cooperation and collaboration amongst all users in order to accommodate all areas of growth. So it was a really good exercise. We're intending to do it again, and we'd like to potentially expand it to other groups as well, as we broaden the scope, bring more people in for insights that they can bring to us, but also understanding that we can deliver to them about how facilities are managed.
So channeling my inner mayor, there'll be a summit series.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Executive Director. Call for any other questions from members of this committee. Excellent. And so it is moved by Councillor Berman and seconded by Vice Chair Comey that staff report PRC 2020-11 facility allocation policy be received, and that council delegates to staff the authority to allocate ice, guided by the principles of the facility allocation policy. And all of those in favor? Lovely, passes unanimously. Now we move to reports of other committees and boards, and we have a dose of them this evening, including the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Downtown BIA, as well as Museum Advisory Committee and the Trails and Active Transportation Advisory Committee. Clerk Almus, I don't turn to the public at this point. We just go through that list and if there are comments from the committee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so item number 6 is that the minutes of the various committees and boards provided below be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. 6.1, the Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes from September 7th, 2020 and October 15th, 2020. 6.2, the Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes from the regular meeting September 3rd, 2020, the regular meeting September 17th, 2020, the special meeting October 1st, 2020, and the regular meeting on, I'm sorry, my screen just went wonky. There we go. Regular meeting October the 8th, 2020, the special meeting October the 14th, 2020, as well as the Museum Advisory Committee minutes from September 24th, 2020 and October 15th, 2020, and the Trails and Active Transportation Committee Advisory Committee meeting minutes from September the 10th of 2020 and October the 8th of 2020. Does anyone on this committee have questions or comments regarding any of those minutes coming to the floor? Seeing none, I have one comment to make, and that is regarding, as you may have noticed, quite a few meetings of the BIA in the last little while. And I want to just extend some praise to our BIA for the sort of reorganization that has taken place under shepherded, I suppose, by Clerk Almus and also with help from Stephanie Hochran, I apologize, that's my dog, for the hard work that they've done. There's been like 6 meetings, and I believe there's another special meeting tomorrow. And it has been quite a lot of work incorporating the new members of the BIA and getting them up to speed, and still continuing to plan, all in the dynamic of a pandemic. So I'd like to offer my congratulations to Clerk Almus and to Stephanie for the hard work that they've done, as well as to the Deputy Mayor for the work that he has done on that board as well. And so, seeing no other comments, I'll call the question to, and it is moved by Vice Chair Comey and seconded by Mayor Saunderson, that the minutes of these various committees be accepted. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to the consent agenda, and it is moved by Member Mayor Saunderson and seconded by Councillor Madigan that the general consent agenda, having been given due consideration by the Standing Committee, be received. One item on that, which is item 7.1 from the town of Amherstburg, the AODA website compliance extension request. This is to be received only. Are there any questions or comments from any members of the committee on the consent agenda? And so I'll call the question on that. All those in favor? And that is carried as well. Departmental updates, and I believe we might have one from Executive Director Culver with his PRC hat on today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll put my PRC hat on. So it was requested by Councillor Doherty that I bring to this committee an update on the tree planting program that from our generous benefactor, Julie DiLorenzo. So the tree park that was a part of the plan. So obviously, I think the committee is aware that plans were somewhat disrupted by COVID, that we didn't get done all the things that we hoped to get done in terms of community planting and partnerships with the MVCA, although none of that is not going to happen. It's just got delayed by COVID. We have been able to put in an RFP for a significant number of trees to be planted on a 1 acre parcel on Fisher Field in the northwest corner. And it should be planted in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would hopefully in the next week or two, if the weather keeps going the way it is. We need to get them in the ground. They obviously remain dormant through the winter, but hopefully they'll take in the spring, and we'll have a nice start to a tree park out there. We're also taking a look at, through some discussion with Councillor Hamlin and the connection to CCI, potentially getting some more planting done along what will eventually be formally known as the Hamilton Drain Trail and become known as the Tree Trail, in honor of the donation we received. We're working on that detail as well. And looking at the spring, we'll be looking at going back into collaboration with the MVCA for the school planting program that they run, enhancing that through the donation. And then finally, Wendy Martin and I will spend the winter working on the community planting plan. So this was an idea that would offer residents the opportunity to plant a tree in their own yard and look after that tree. And we would take some stock of it and use those measurements to hopefully enhance the town's tree canopy. That was a program we'd hope to get started this year, but obviously we're unable to, but we feel confident that we can get it started and be ready to go in the spring.
Thank you, Executive Director Culver. Are there any questions from the public on what Executive Director Culver had to say?
Looking at attendees, there's nothing from the audience wishing to speak to this item.
Thank you. Any members of the committee who have a question or a comment for Executive Director Culver? Seeing none, I have one, and it is not as much about this particular donation, but it is about tree planting in general and the loss that we've had in the last little while because of the emerald ash borer And I know that some trees on town property have had to come down, and that we are planning to replace them. What can we say, or what do we know about when those plantings may take place? Is this all one big thing of tree planting that takes place in the next little while? Are these sort of amalgamated programs?
Thank you. So the program I spoke of is a specific program. It was a specific RFP that went out, and therefore a specific planting program for Fisher Field. I'm not completely up to speed, I'll be perfectly honest, in terms of where we are with our annual planting replacement program. I'll have to check with both Public Works and Wendy and Parks to see where we're at for 2020. I do know that this has been a difficult year for everything from acquiring stock to dealing with costs. So I will just sort of propose that, and then I can get back to you with more information on where we are with our annual replacement program.
I apologize. I should have asked you that in advance. I wasn't, I apologize for that.
No worries.
And so there's another departmental update, and I believe that we'll turn to Clerk Almas to talk about the BIA, now that you're drowning in all the praise I gave you.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair McLeod, and to the committee. First of all, I appreciate the acknowledgement, but I truly do need to recognize the 5 remaining previous members of the BIA and the 4 new ones. The reason why we've had significant meetings is they've really hit the ground running. They've been doing a lot of work. It's very cohesive, and we look forward to their plans for the holiday season, albeit still in the midst of COVID. They have some exciting ideas that they'll be discussing and bringing forward. But I did want to take this opportunity to quickly remind the public and any BIAs or employees within the BIA boundary that the advisory committees that the board has set up, the deadline for applications for those positions is this Friday, November the 6th. So make sure that you head to the BIA website and find the application information. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact Sue, their general manager.
Thank you very much, Clerk Almas. I don't believe we have any other departmental updates scheduled for this meeting, do we? Okay, so that brings us to public delegations. And do we have any members of the public who wish to speak to this committee this evening?
Looking at the attendees, Chair, I don't believe that there's anybody wishing to speak.
Thank you very much, which brings us to other business. Is there any other business from any member of this committee? Which brings us to a 24-minute meeting. And so moved by Councillor Comey that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee be hereby adjourned. All of those in favor? Thank you very much for your very little amount of time. This meeting is adjourned.